Evening, everybody. How are we all doing? Hope you're all well. Hope you can hear me. Hey, Mo, Adam, and Stu. Welcome to the chat. Drop us a line. Let us know whether or not you can hear me, as always, and then we will get going. Tonight, I am going to be done in an hour, so you can all relish the extra time you're going to get. Two reasons. One, there's a bit to talk about, but there's not as much as others. But two, and the main one is we got the cuddle this weekend. So one, I've been doing my presentations, so I've got to work on the PowerPoint presentations for that. And also the other thing, I don't really want to just be regurgitating content, which will come out at the weekend and then will be released to you guys later on. So what we're going to do is we're just going to try and keep this one short and sweet. There's still loads to get through. We'll cover a little bit of the news. Not too much has really happened. Have a look at some of the questions that have been asked. Some of them we could spend hours looking at. Unfortunately, we won't. Then we'll have a look at what Bitcoin's doing. It's moved again. And then we'll have a look at some of the other ones. And we'll just round that off. But if you've got any questions or anything else, then feel free to drop them in the chat and we'll go from there. Right, let's dive in. Okay, ooh, long chart. Here we go. So Bitcoin chart, as we usually see here on the weekly. Basically what we've seen pretty much today, although it did start Sunday night, was effectively we've lost everything that we gained pretty much last week. We'll have a look at sort of levels that they've hit and gone and touched there, but we got about 38,000. We did drop as low as about 34,600 earlier on today, but you can see that we've climbed above 35,000, and we'll just try and analyze where that's going. What else has happened? Well, we're not going to go into it in much detail, but it was the US CPI data that came out today, and actually that looked pretty strong. We had a greater fall than was anticipated. I think we're down at 3.1 now. I can't remember, but we've seen that the dollar has reacted to that today, and the dollar has taken a fairly decent nosedive down in the bottom left hand corner, which hopefully you guys can see. The camera's not in the way. It's kind of hitting, just breaking through that area of previous price action that we've kind of identified. Price action in inverted commas, of course, but a previous area where it has shown some sort of support or resistance. So we'll have to wait and see. Ethereum, like a lot of altcoins, has had an incredible last 4 weeks. We're starting to see that pull back with Bitcoin. We'll go into that a bit later. But of course, the one that everyone's interested in, it being Casper, it's doing what Casper does, and that is just defying the rest of the market. So while everything else has fallen pretty heavily, actually Casper's up 10% today. Not sure where it's going, but we will have a look at that as well. Okay, Richard said something's freezing. Don't think anyone else is too worried about it at the moment, Richard, but just keep on letting me know in chat if that does happen. Everything in the stream is saying it's fine, so I'm not too sure there. Right, okay. I'm going to jump straight into the news. As I said, I'm just trying to get through this. Sorry, I was scrolling through it. One interesting bit of news, which it didn't even catch my eye at the time that it happened, because this happened and finished so quickly. But we've talked about fake news all the time on the channel. We talked about doing due diligence, and we've had another incident of some fake news. This was XRP. Allegedly, BlackRock had filed paperwork in Delaware to say that they were going to list an XRP ETF. Obviously, off the back of that, XRP's price flew up, but crypto Twitter, being crypto Twitter, actually people know people. So one of the influencers on Twitter actually reached out to BlackRock directly. BlackRock confirmed that it was fake news, and within 30 minutes of the pump, the price had totally and utterly recovered. So, I mean, this is the chart. This is the 30-minute when it happened. You can kind of see how much it went up. But it went from 66 to 75. So it wasn't a huge jump, but it was around about 12-14% increase. But that was fully recovered on the news that it wasn't there. And the point I'm just trying to make is everyone's super excited about ETFs at the moment. And off the back of Ethereum ETFs being filed as well, I think, it was only inevitable that some people were going to try and get off the back of this. Now, this wasn't necessarily, it was fake news, but it wasn't an erroneous comment or what. It looks like someone had actually gone and listed this in Delaware. It looks like it was on behalf of BlackRock, but it wasn't. It was just someone pulling the prank. That's how the news came about. But I always stress, a bit like when we saw that Cointelegraph had announced that the spot ETF had been approved, it's just do your due diligence. Now, this one happened so quickly, I didn't even see it, but it just goes to show that actually there's still going to be this. And as we get into the bull run, I assure you that is going to get bigger and bigger, worse and potentially worse, particularly with how the price is going to move. Next one is still involving BlackRock. And it's kind of an interesting one that's come out. I have to say thanks to Bijan for bringing this one to my attention. I don't really like Watcher Guru or his news website because he rarely has any sources. But regardless of sources, I think this one is a fairly interesting thought experiment, if nothing else. And BlackRock basically saying that USDT and USDC stablecoins pose risk to Bitcoin. Now, basically read into that as you will, but I'm saying they're the two biggest stable coins out there, so you might as well just say that BlackRock doesn't like stable coins whatsoever. And for as long as USDT or Tether has been around, we've had FUD about it. And, you know, for the first few years of Tether's life, I think that was fully justifiable. They were very cagey with their accounts, with how their backing of Tether in real world assets had sort of come about. But I think over the last 12 months, whilst it's not, you know, 100% crystal clear waters, it's definitely less murky than it was. They've even actually posted, you know, record profits this year in terms of their investments and how that's panned out. So I'm not saying that every single Tether that they claim is in existence is backed one-to-one for $1, which it should be. That's the whole point of it. But you know, they are starting to spoon feed us little bits of information. So I call into question, well, what exactly is BlackRock's issue with USDT and USDC? And I suppose, you know, we've always got the risk of them not being backed, and there means such a large, you know, segment of the altcoin market, even though they're stable coins, that if it did implode, we've talked about this many times, that it's going to bring the whole of the crypto market down. It won't kill it, but you can sure believe that it is going to take it all the way down. And I suppose for BlackRock, they're, you know, let's face it, spot ETF gets approved. What do they want to see? Well, they, you know, them and their investors, they want to see steady year-on-year growth. And so massive altcoins, you know, collapsing underneath them, you know, causing huge volatility within the price of the Bitcoin is not what their investors and ultimately what they're going to want to see. Now, of course, crypto market is highly volatile at the moment anyway, and so it can still have price moving up and down regardless of that. But I get the point that it is a bit of a risk. But what's the other element to this? And this is just me thinking out loud. You know, I don't think it really goes into it in the article as such. But again, you know, BlackRock's spot ETF, when it gets approved, will have certain rules within that. And that will basically be that, you know, you can buy the asset, Bitcoin, you can trade it that way. But it's not like institutional money is going to flow into Bitcoin. BlackRock are going to go, I'm a bit bored of this. Let's go and buy a shed ton of Doge. No, not at all. They're going to, you know, have to stay within the rules, which I presume will be related around the trading of Bitcoin itself. So where's the issue? Well, the issue, I suppose, comes with stablecoins and, you know, their popularity and their size being, well, in times of hardship for Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, where do the rest of the market escape to? Well, typically they escape to stablecoins. And again, that's going to take money out of Bitcoin into a safe asset for them, which potentially BlackRock wouldn't actually be able to utilize. So that's also going to create that volatility that we see in bear markets. So it doesn't necessarily surprise me that BlackRock don't like stablecoins, certainly don't like large stablecoins. I think there's many reasons why they wouldn't. But for me, you know, they are a necessary evil. We've utilized them in bear markets. They're also very handy to just keep your money in, or your money in, instead of it being back in an actual bank account. Especially for those of us in the UK, the troubles we're having at the moment with on and off ramps. Well, I don't necessarily think off ramps, but certainly on ramps. You know, if you don't necessarily need it, then actually just keeping your funds in a stable coin, you know, cycle to cycle, is not necessarily a bad thing. But yeah, what I will say is articles like this don't help Tether's case. So I should have got this up on CoinMarketCap. I will do in a moment. But We've seen this in bear markets, but we mainly see this in bull markets. And if anyone was around in the 2020, 2021 bull market, you'll know that on sort of weekly, almost daily occurrences, Tether were minting huge quantities of USDT. And they're continuing to do it. And at the moment, it stands at nearly $4 billion worth in the last 4 weeks alone. Now, actually, when you look at the dates, we could have gone with $3 billion in the last 2 weeks, and then there was another billion 3 weeks after that, or prior to that. But as this article says here, nearly 20% of all of the USDT that's been issued in 2023 has come out in the last 4 weeks. What have we seen in the last 4 weeks? We've seen the price of Bitcoin and altcoins absolutely skyrocket. It always seems to be, and that's why people follow the Tether chart, which we'll bring up in a moment. It seems to be a precursor, but more Tether gets printed and then Bitcoin price just goes up. And I don't know why people don't follow it as cleanly as that, because when you look back historically, that is kind of the picture of where it is. But if we just go on to coin market cap, we just go into Tether. We're not interested in the price. We want to see the market cap all time. So what you've seen, flatline in its early days, a million, 5 million, 300 million. We get to a billion round about the peak of the 2017 bull run. But this looks like a flat line, to be honest with you. But then we get to 2020, and we start off, let's just say we start off 2020 at 4 billion. And then, we jump to 6 billion. So that's a 50% increase in the space of 3 months. And then we're up at, 100% increase in the space of 5 months. And then we're nearly, 150 in the space of 9 months. And then when we get into the end of 2020 and 2021, it just suddenly goes parabolic. And, bearing in mind, at the beginning of the year, we were at 4 billion. We ended this year, if I can find it, we ended it at 20. So that was a 500x. And then by the time we got to the end of 2021, we'd gone from 20 billion to pretty much 80 billion. I can get to it. So again, another 400x. So it's, in the space of 2 years, this thing had gone up. I'm trying to do the maths here. 2,000%, 200 times. Yeah. 20 times. I think I'm just need to rethink that one. But then we can see the bear market happened. And then obviously it dies away. And then the start of this year, Bitcoin, let's face it, since the beginning of this year, whether you like it or not, started at $16,000. We're at 37 now, 35 and a half, I should say, after today's correction. And they've just been printing Tether. And then we've seen that last little peak that's happened. And I get why BlackRock don't like stuff like this, where this fairly, very confidential, not transparent company is just making a stable coin, telling the world that it has the reserves to back it. And yet the entire market pretty much uses Tether. I rarely use any other trading pair. I do use some. But for me, it is Tether just because it's so easy, because so many pairs are on Tether. And yeah, it has its spikes down and spikes lows, but ultimately it stood the test of time, I think. And it's just an odd thing that we have put so much faith in this, and yet we know next to nothing about it. Rob's put BlackRock will probably develop their own stable coin, have financial interest in one, at least. I agree. Yeah, I think what will happen, BlackRock are going to get their foothold in the market, assuming ETFs are. I mean, it's not just BlackRock. They're all going to pile in. We know there's 11 applications currently outstanding at the moment, but being the largest asset under management investment vehicle in the world, then they're going to get their foothold in. I'm sure they're going to find a way to create that for themselves. In terms of, I think other banks will as well. I think ultimately that's where we'll move towards. And it may not be necessarily that countries do, but maybe it's actually banks that end up doing that. But that's a talk for another day. And as I say, I'm 14 minutes into a 60-minute session. Richard, but what's the reason that USDT had a spike in its market cap recently? How can it create more and then it just disappear in the same day? So I know what you mean on, I don't know which chart it was on. I don't know if it's even going to show here. My theory behind that one is it was probably a UI error, because when you have a, I mean, this is it. 7th, where's the 8th? There's the 8th. So there's the spike you're talking about, and then it just stays there. So, but I know which chart you're talking about on there. It looks like a whopping high test and then comes back down. Market, yeah, okay, let's have a look. SDT market cap. This one. It's likely just a UI interface issue. That's my honest opinion. I've seen that happen on other stable coins. You've seen it happen on this one. Spikes down, spikes down, spikes up. Whatever happens, I think that's just an error. That's my honest opinion on it. Whether or not it's true, I don't know. But okay, right. I mean, there wasn't really much news. Nothing basically caught my attention anyway. I think everyone was just too busy staring at their portfolios, which we'll get into a little bit later on. But let's have a look at some of the questions now. Oh, or not. Let's try that one again. There we go. So I had a few. They weren't actually posted on here. They're just posted in Discord. So I've just moved them across. So Luke, you've just recently asked me, which is why it's at the top. Can you explain what the fear and greed index is, how it works, and what it means for us? Yeah. So I mean, I'll just go to the one that I typically use, which is alternative.me /crypto fear and greed index. And the fear and greed index is effectively a visualization of the market sentiment for Bitcoin, predominantly Bitcoin. You'll see why I say Bitcoin in a moment, just because of how it's actually made up. And it's represented in two ways. It's represented on this sort of like dial, if you will, which we'll go through the colors in a moment. You've got the historical values, but then if you scroll down, you've also got a linear kind of graph, which depicts it all. Now, it came about in the beginning of 2018. So you can't search for data before then, because this is actually when it was around. So let's look at, what it is and how it's done. So the crypto market behavior is emotional. Well, that's not just crypto, that's investing in general. People tend to be greedy when the market is rising, which results in FOMO. Also, people often sell their coins in irrational reactions of seeing red numbers, stuff we've covered many times before. And so the fear and greed index is trying to just sort of visualize what that is and give you a sort of an understanding of perhaps to think the polar opposite. So extreme fear, which is in the red zone, that is below 20, I believe, is a sign that investors are worried. And this is an ideal buying opportunity. But ultimately, because there's so much fear in the market, people are very reluctant to do that. And when investors get too greedy, so extreme greed, depends which one you use. It's between 75 and 80 on the chart. People are just piling in because they just want to get on the bandwagon of this. But actually, it generally means that the market is going to correct. And this is an ideal time to take profit. So they analyze the current sentiment of the Bitcoin market, crunch the numbers, and then just put it on a meter 0 to 100, 0 being extreme fear, while 100 being extreme greed. So the data source, I'm not going to necessarily run through them all, but they have a look at the volatility index, and they weigh, they use 25% of the weightings based on the volatility index. Market momentum and volume is a further 25%. Then they actually, I don't know what the algorithm is, but then they have a look at Reddit sentiment analysis. I don't know if that's maybe moved on. Twitter analysis they mentioned here as well. They have a look at hashtags, the amount of time something is posted, etc. And then however they decide to calculate that into a figure, they use that as a 15% weighting. Surveys, well, they've got rid of that now. They used to do straw polls, but they don't anymore. Dominance, and then trends. So they're using Google Trend data to determine what people are looking at and whether that is. And there are other ones out here. So if you go onto CoinMarketCap, right at the top in your little widgets, there's a fear and greed index here. So this says 75, but if you actually remember on here, we were only at 69, and that's just because of how they evaluate it. It's done, they use different metrics, I suppose, but generally kind of giving you a very similar element to it. And then one that I do like looking at, and I highly recommend you sort of include this, it's look into Bitcoin. It's a free chart if you're going to look into Bitcoin. And it gives you a visual representation of the fear and greed index overlaid on the price, which I think is a lot cleaner to look at. And we'll be able to actually utilize this to get some form of analysis of where it's going. So if we go back here, yeah, okay, 69, I know that it's green, it's greedy, and I can see where it was in previous days. This one here is quite difficult to look at. One, because all the information is compressed, but two, it doesn't really give you an indication of price. This is just market sentiment. So just because we might be super greedy doesn't mean that was the highest the price ever went. And so without getting that overlay, there's no real understanding of where it is. But if you actually use the look into Bitcoin, you've got the key on the right hand side, which gives you the color, and you can actually click on it and it'll give you each of the individual scores. But now suddenly we can take that data and we can kind of see, well, what color was it when, and what happened to the price at that stage. And so we can have a look, when we get to the darker greens, we're due a correction. We get to sort of like the oranges and the reds, we're due some sort of pullback. We get to the strong darker greens again, we have that correction. Now, this is why it's not tradable in my opinion, because look, this was the first ever full-on bull run, because remember it came in 2018, so we missed the 2017 bull run. But look how long we stayed greedy for. Months we stayed greedy. So just at the first sight of a dark green doesn't necessarily mean you need to sell, but you just got to be aware of maybe when it changes color. That's the idea. So it's not about it moving into a color that is your trigger. It's moving away from that color, going back down the metrics or the rainbow chart, whatever you want to call it, which could be what you could utilize. But we can kind of see we had that pullback during summer 21, bounced back up, and then we've had this bear market. But if you see, look, I do believe that the lowest figure was 6. I think there's a 5 somewhere in here. But that was actually at 19,000. We ended up going lower, and the lowest we recorded at 15 there was 21. So we were back into double digits, but there wasn't as much fear. Now, of course, in the summer of 22, I mean, if we didn't have the lunar terror crash, then we had the 3 hours capital and Celsius, and so the market was just like, what's the next thing? Well, it didn't take long until FTX showed us what the next thing was, but actually there wasn't as much fear, I think, because most people had been shaken out of it anyway by then. So we were just like, okay, yeah, another thing's happened here. That's crypto for you. But what we can now see is actually, we've moved away from the oranges generally, and we're starting to form that kind of yellowy green color, and that's where we're sitting at the moment. And we don't know when the pullback's going to happen, but what we do know is that when we get into the green, we are due a correction, and that's the whole purpose for it, and that's probably how we can use it. This goes into a fairly decent breakdown of how they use it and how you can use it and how they generate the information. So I'll post all of these in Discord for you to have a look at. But look into Bitcoin generally as a website's very good. This is just a useful chart. I used to have an overlay indicator on here, but I can't find it. So there's this one, which it does it in 2 representations. So you've got the fear and greed index down here, and then you can just look up at the price. So that one is crypto fear and greed index. Matter of fact, we just go into here for those of you that are interested in having that on your charts. And I think it was this one. Let's see. Oh, it wasn't that one. No, it wasn't that one. Okay. Oh, it's this one here. Crypto fear and greed index by Pine Query. Okay, so that's the one you want to select. Let's get rid of these. Anyway, look, I hope that helped. Adams put, would be good to hear your thoughts on this, on the next Avengers cord, which is a Twitter link which didn't copy across, but this is it here. So this is from Galaxy Pals, and we're looking here at whether or not Jonathan Sopolinsky, I really need to learn to say his surname, could actually be Satoshi Nakamoto. And there's a thread here which talks about whether or not he can be, which I'm going to, I will go through. You've asked me for my thoughts on it. We'll go through it there, and we'll try and see. What I will say is, we don't know, 100% who Satoshi Nakamoto is. There's been numerous people that have been potentially identified as who this person or persons could be. We've even had talk about, agencies like the NSA being Satoshi Nakamoto. And because they've kept their identity secret, and for as long as they do, we'll ultimately never know. There'll be many theories about it, and trust me, I'm going to show you there are websites dedicated to analyzing every post he put on Reddit, every email he ever sent, everything like that, to try and determine who this could be. And people have been searching for 14, 15 years, and we still don't know. Could Jonathan Sopolinsky be it? Well, there's certainly some compelling evidence within this. We'll go through that now, and then we'll have a poll. But whilst I'm running through it, feel free to let me know who you think it is, or whether or not you do think it could be Jonathan. So what does he start off with? Well, the last time that Satoshi Nakamoto posted on Bitcoin forums was the end of 2010, December 13. And what this thread is saying is, well, look at the timing, because Jonathan started up his Twitter profile in December 2010, and he even put as a real imposter. Now, I will give my thoughts on each of these as we go through. I might skip over some as well. What I would say is, you can't change the date that you joined, so that's fine, but that could just be a coincidence. You can certainly edit your bio. So a real imposter, he could have put that in 2 years ago. To be fair, not many people knew about Jonathan longer than 2 years ago. Not many people were following him longer than 2 years ago until he came up with Kaz. So, we don't know when that came in. I'm sure there's people that can deep dive into Wayback Machine and have a look at what it had done before. But okay, Satoshi disappeared from there, and then the very same month, Jonathan's handle appeared. Unfortunately, it's hundreds of thousands of people's that also appeared. So at the moment, that's just coincidence. Again, you guys can go through this in a lot more detail if you're interested. Early crypto architects. So Jonathan's work is referenced in the Ethereum white paper. We've all talked about that. We've actually identified that, he's been cited in a lot more crypto projects through the years. And so, it's fair to say that he is certainly on his own an OG within the crypto space. What they're basically saying here is that the fact that he has been cited, the fact that he has been, so active in crypto since an early time, his Ghost Protocol theory has been cited in the Ethereum white paper, and obviously he's gone to develop that into Ghost Stag and everything else. That he obviously has the knowledge and the understanding and the credentials, because of where and what he did at university, to have created Bitcoin or the theory behind Bitcoin. And again, absolutely. But for me, that's just a coincidence at the moment. We need to move on to that. The mastery of Nakamoto's consensus. So that is the consensus mechanism that effectively is utilized. So the Kaz white papers go into basically talking about how the Bitcoin system, as good as it was at the time, it needed evolving, and that's where this Ghost Stag came in. And so what effectively is going on to say here is, he knows that system really well. He knew it so well because maybe he was the original creator of it. And again, I get it, and maybe I'm just being a bit of a frog in water that's slowly being heated up. There's too many coincidences happening at the same time for me to jump out, but there's loads of people that understand how Bitcoin works. Loads of people, loads of OGs. You can ask most of the OGs in the crypto space, the core developers, and they'll know exactly how the Nakamoto, the Bitcoin consensus model works with the proof of stake, the limitations and the positive things behind that. So I'm still not convinced on point number 4. Reassessing the evidence. So look closer at Kaz's white paper reveals a deep understanding of the blockchain potential. You can check him out. Well, okay, that's fine. He's an intelligent person, absolutely. And whoever created Bitcoin must have been an intelligent person, because the premise of it seems so simple, but the logic and the execution, is borderline flawless in terms of just how it's going to, well, I'm not going to get into it, but like the immutability of it, and the fact that we solved, or whoever it was, slip of the tongue, maybe it's me, solved the double spend problem and all that kind of stuff. It's absolutely brilliant in how it's worked. Really fixing how we rely and on the fiat system, and how the fiat system is so broken for us mere mortals that have to spend it. So then we have a look at Jonathan's crypto timeline, number 6. So we've got 2008, the Nakamoto consensus, 2015 Ghost, then we've got Spectre Phantom, Phantom Ghost Dag, and then we've got Dag Knight. Could Jonathan have kicked off Bitcoin and then kept improving it? Absolutely. I mean, whoever. One of the things that the last sign-offs for Satoshi Nakamoto was he paraphrased it, but basically he just went on to say, I'm leaving this as open source to you guys now. I'm going to go and work on something better. And so, absolutely, there is a clear timeline difference between 2010 and then 2013 and the development of Ghost Protocol and everything else that came through. So, absolutely could have done that. Still a coincidence at the moment. This is probably the biggest stretch for me, is the anagram. Because an anagram of Jonathan Sopolimsky is Oni Satoshi Nakamoto. The pronunciation of Oni means I or me in Hebrew, okay? So his perfect anagram means I am Satoshi Nakamoto. The anagram falls down because there's missing the H. I will say that. There's no H. Maybe if he spelled Jonathan with a H, we could have had that. But again, that feels like that's potentially a stretch there. But I will, I'll have to just leave it. I mean, I don't know. Yeah. The Dag Knight white paper released exactly 14 years to the day after the Bitcoin white paper. That is that's a nice touch to it. Something tells me that was probably done deliberately, as in, right, we've got this. We're gonna release Dag Knight, which is gonna revolutionize crypto space in our mind. It's gonna, solve some of the issues that we had in the Bitcoin consensus mechanism. Well, you know what, guys? It's near the end of October. Actually, why don't we just wait and then we can launch it on the day? That the fact that it was launched to the day doesn't by any means suggest, if you took that on its own, to say that Jonathan is Satoshi Nakamoto. So I'm gonna restoring Satoshi's legacy. Number 9. Jonathan seems intent on elevating Satoshi's original vision, but what drives his commitment to the Nakamoto consensus? Is it mere admiration, or is there a personal stake to see the initial, perhaps incomplete work through to its full potential? So, yeah, obviously Bitcoin was originally envisaged as an electronic peer-to-peer payment system because of its scarcity, because of what's happened with it. People don't like to spend it. So it isn't living up to what it was originally built as, and it's actually evolved into something else. And, Casper at its very roots is trying to be the silver to Bitcoin's gold. That's the whole point of the name. And it is trying to focus on being that peer-to-peer electronic payment system. So it's absolutely trying to achieve those. Satoshi returns. So the Satoshi account, dormant for years, activated in 2018 to post a single word, Noor, an evocative term for enlightenment. That same year, the Phantom white paper associated with Kaz was published. So, I mean, I don't really know what to say necessarily about that, except for, it is a coincidence again. But what I will say is there's an awful lot of coincidences, isn't it? Of the 10 that we've gone through, I'd say 9 I've said it's a coincidence. One of them I probably rejected outside. Similar style of writing. So I told you, people plow through every single email he's ever written to have a look at sort of the nuances that he's gone and done. So pay close attention to the punctuation habits between Satoshi and Jonathan. Now, this is something that is quite interesting, because whenever you are doing something subconsciously, it's subconscious, you're not aware that it's happening. So things like how you talk, but also how you punctuate and speak in, electronic form, or whatever you want to call it, text, emails, etc. The way that you structure words sometimes is just ingrained in you. And so there definitely can be similarities to that. And I'm not saying that it's a full-on fingerprint, but actually, if you can find some nuances together that may marry up, then, you could certainly believe that there's a fair chance that that's the same. It's a bit like, I don't know, spelling the same word wrong, or being able to write your R's exactly the same way. So pay close attention to the punctuation habits between Satoshi and Jonathan. We're using machine learning to compare every Jonathan and Satoshi text, as well as interviews, to test our hypothesis soon, so they'll stay tuned for that. I mean, I'll click on these. So it's these like little double spaces that he used, convoluted the way that they spell it, how he puts full stops rather than commas, and all that kind of stuff. So, okay. I think that's more compelling. That's probably one of the most compelling ones that's out there. They share the same birthday. I couldn't find out when his birthday was, so When is this birthday? 5th of April. Okay, and I couldn't find out when. My birthday is today, 5th of April. I don't know how old he is. That was something I was trying to find out. Is at the time he wrote the paper, how old was Jonathan? Because he went to university in 2013. Now, when I went to university, I was 18, but I appreciate that people go to university a lot later in life. So he could have been a lot older. But assuming that he was 18, 19, 20 in 2013, you got to knock 5 years off that. And suddenly, we've got a 13-year-old that's potentially the author of a Bitcoin. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I know when I was 13, that's not what I was thinking about. Speculation amongst crypto veterans. As the identity of Satoshi has always sparked rumors within the crypto community. Interestingly, we're not alone. My hypothesis about Jonathan. Seasoned crypto enthusiasts have pondered the same. I know that Simon's got some fair thoughts that Jonathan might well be it. But there's a couple of people here. I mean, the only one that I recognize the name of is Adam. But anyway, he was not even addressed in these tweets. So basically what he's saying is Fred, whoever, said, thank you, Satoshi, whoever you are. And then Jonathan, who wasn't even notified in the tweet, just happened to go on and say, you are welcome. He could have been trolling. I don't know. My problem with this one, I suppose, is let's just say that Jonathan is, and he's waited 14 years. He's never come out as being the author of Bitcoin. Why would you be so blatant there? You know, you've got to be, to not do something for 14 years. You're basically giving up that life. You would not then come back and just do a little joke tweet. You'd totally have given it up. Otherwise, how's your mindset working? But maybe I'm wrong. And then I'm not going to show you the video, but there's a couple in here. I think we've got quite a few to get through here. Where he makes a slip of the tongue about saying, I'm not taking lightly to build another coin, at the word another. I don't know Jonathan well enough to know if there was something before Casper, so I'll leave that to you, Casper enthusiasts, if you think that's the case. Monetary vision and symbolic messages. So the Genesis bot contained a Hebrew message referencing silver and gold, symbolically aligning to CAS and Bitcoin. Well, that's the whole point of CAS. So I would expect something like that in the Genesis block to have, something about silver, because that's the name of it. So yeah, much like, for those of you who aren't aware, the Genesis block for Bitcoin was the headlines of the Sunday Times. I think it's the 3rd of January 2009 to Genesis block, which basically says Chancellor of the Exchequer considering bank bailout or something, which was very timely given that, the fiat system was completely broken. Bitcoin's going to fix it. So that's going to be the first thing that's linked to it. There you go. Relevant piece of fact there for you. Zcash, I could go for all of these, but it's already 20 minutes to go, guys. So have a look. He sort of has an inward smile when someone says about Satoshi, as if he's like talking about himself. Despite the bear market, Kaz has outperformed in growth. Absolutely, but that's got nothing to do with Jonathan being Sablinski, and neither does the market cap. It's finally growing. People then talk about it. So I think there's some relatively compelling coincidences, which taken individually, it's hard to believe. There's a lot of things that have run up to it to suggest that actually, maybe he is. I suppose here's where my thought process with that is. You've got to create, not from Jonathan, but just the mindset of whoever Satoshi is, assuming they're not dead, or the NSA. You've got to created arguably one of the most successful asset classes in all of human history. Its growth over the last 14 years has completely outstripped any other asset class there is. And you made your peace 3 years into that journey to go, for the good of this, I am not going to reveal who I am. I'm just going to move on to something else, which is absolutely fine. Because they've done it, haven't they? But then to go, you know what? I'm not going to take any credit for that, but I am going to put my name and my face to the next thing going forward. To me, it'd just be, you'd just do exactly the same again. Yes, you'd want to improve on it. This is a very altruistic person or persons that develop this, making it open source, giving it effectively to the world to utilize, and not taking any credit for it. why would you then be like, right, well, now I want to be in the limelight for something else? And just that doesn't marry up. You're either that type of person and you don't want to be involved, because trust me, this is a big thing to step back from. To then go into something a bit smaller, just, I don't know. That's just my opinion on that one. In terms of who else there could be, was going to go through it, but time's kind of against us. I think there's been some pretty big names over the time. Feel free to sort of delve into those. Nick Szabo, Al Finney. He was basically one of the early adopters and promoters for this, and really vocal within the Bitcoin community. He's passed away. I think most people think it was him, but we've got the benefit in inverted commas. We can't question him about that because he's no longer alive. But a lot of people have said, well, perhaps he knew he was dying and he wanted to give something good to the world and not have to take the credit for it. Very compelling case there. Dorian Nakamoto. This was a bit of a joke in that back in 2014, someone published a picture of this man saying he was Satoshi Nakamoto. The whole crypto world descended on this poor Japanese fellow's door, knocked on it. He's like, oh, my name's Dorian, it's not even Satoshi. But even then, people still don't believe it. They think that it is him. Craig Wright, that idiot Australian that thinks he's Nakamoto, he's been going to court through all this. But yeah, he's the most vocal, saying he is. Everyone else is saying they're not. He's the only one that's saying there is. Adam Back, we talked about a little bit earlier. Creator of Hashcash, proposed in 97, so he's been around for a while. There's Wee Day as well, I covered this. I can't remember when we covered it, but he did B Money. So again, 98. So he's sort of .com era, so certainly involved. Can't pronounce this gentleman's name, and to be honest, I hadn't actually heard of him. Just to touch on this wacky website. So if you are interested in delving into all of this kind of stuff, you can go to this website here, SatoshiNakamotoInstitute.org, and you can click on things like emails. And what it'll do, it'll bring up every email he's sent relating to it. So you can click on the first ever one, and this is it. I've been working on a new electronic cash system that's fully peer-to-peer with no trusted third party. The paper is available here, and then it goes through it all. That's the first ever email he ever sent about it. Or if you don't want to look at the emails, you can go, well, what did he do in his forums and his Reddit posts? And you can click on every single one he's done. And this is what people do. They try and delve in to try and understand who he is, where he was. Now, so there's rumors, and I do have to say it's rumors, that the IP address of Satoshi Nakamoto is known because he did a couple of things. He set up email addresses. Can't remember them all. There's a Satoshi Nakamoto at GMX, I think was one of them. But whatever it was, he had to set up those email addresses, and those email addresses are real life things that required a connection to the internet. And so whilst he, allegedly, I wasn't around at this time in crypto space to know, but people say he used Tor quite a lot, so he masked where he was. But to set up those email addresses, there was an IP address. Now, people aren't disclosing. People who know are claiming they're not going to disclose it unless they're asked to by the government. No government has asked. However, if you search hard enough, people suggesting it was based in Van Nuys, is it, in Los Angeles? I've got it here. Yeah, it's where the IP address was located. This was it all, and so that gives us an idea, if it's true, that in 2008 and 2009, the end of 2008, beginning of 2009. Whoever it was must have been in the west coast of America. Now, they could have been there on holiday, completely accept. But if you are interested enough to try and find out if it is Jonathan, you need to find out where Jonathan was in late 2008 and early 2009. And if he wasn't in America, the chances are it wasn't him. And so, again, you can delve into all this kind of stuff and try and find out who it was. Just on it. What do I think if, let's say it is Jonathan, and it is publicly known that it is Jonathan. Do I think that's good for Casper or not? I think initially, of course, it will be. But I actually think ultimately it'll be bad. It'd be bad for any project that is involved in, because then suddenly the expectation of that project to supersede whatever Bitcoin has achieved, which is a near impossible task. And the pressure would then be put on him. The focus would be taken away from Casper immediately. It'd solely be on him. And of course, that's going to have a detrimental effect. That could be the same if it was Gavin Wood that came out to be, the inventor of Bitcoin, obviously founder of Polkadot. I think that would just have a negative effect. I mean, it's not unrecoverable, but I think you'd have a huge spike up of interest of, wow, this guy has got the record, he must know what he's doing. And then suddenly that focus is going to be so much on him, everything's going to be picked apart, his time's just going to be solely taken with that. And expectation is not going to, well, reality is not going to meet expectation, which will have that downfall. So, whoever it is, I want them to stay anonymous. As much as I want to know they are, I like how they've done it. That's, for me, a much better way of doing it. Bijan's on. Hey there, Bijan. Nothing says due a correction more than the Disney NFT. Yeah, I saw you post that allegedly Disney are launching an NFT, and just as they did, the market dumped. He's probably on a lot of pressure already due to the political situation in Israel, as well as having his own project. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I agree. Right, next question. Do you reckon I'll be finished in 14 minutes? I doubt it. Greg, I'd be curious what checks you do before using a crypto wallet, whether hot or cold. With newer coins coming on the radar at the moment, established wallets not yet supporting them, but other lesser known wallets being available, I'd appreciate your insight into things you look for or any red flags. Okay, so yeah. Straight out of the bat, if you can, my opinion, which is basically the opinion of most people, do not keep any tokens you have on an exchange longer than absolutely necessary. So you buy them, if you ain't trading them, get them gone. Ideally, take them to a cold wallet. Now, a cold wallet is effectively a storage device or location which is not linked to the internet. So it's not hot, it's cold, and it needs a connection. You'll have heard of probably the biggest two, Ledger and Trezors. I have both, but I only use a Trezor. There are other ones out there. There's a Elliptical Titan. I know a few people have bought one. I can't remember the name of it now. Is it Tangem or something like that? Because that's CAS supported. So there's a few out there, but effectively this is a device which only grants access to your wallet if it is physically present. Now, with the likes of the Ledger or the Trezor, you're required to input something into that device. Whereas you can get like scratch cards where you have to scratch stuff into it, and then you have to use that code to decipher whatever code it's asking you on the screen. So you have to have that physical card with you as well. Benefits of those, well, ultimately they're not connected to the internet, so the risk of an external hack is much lower. The biggest concern is you might lose it though. And if you do lose it, yes, there are ways to recover those, certainly for Ledger and for Trezor, but that requires you to safely secure the seed phrases, which again we encourage you to do. I've split mine into three. I've got them in fireproof wallets. Sorry, I've written them down 3 times in 3 separate fireproof wallets, 2 in the UK, 1 in Spain. So I'm never that far away from getting it. Someone's put, didn't Tangem wallet not work? No, I don't think the Tangem wallet didn't work. I think Siam is just a technophobe but couldn't get it to work. I believe Adam in the group has used it, and I think he spoke relatively highly of it, but you'll have to reach out and ask Adam for that. Okay, going back to the question. And then you got hot wallets. Now, hot wallets aren't necessarily bad, but they do carry risks with them. So these are other hardware wallets. I was going to go through. I'll post these links in here and where you can get them from. But there's 10 listed there. In terms of like crypto-based wallets, you probably heard of some of these. So you got a Coinbase one, the Crypto.com, MetaMask, Trust, Exodus is another one which I haven't used for years, to be honest. But the hot wallet is almost the opposite of what a cold wallet is, in that it's actually connected to the internet. Whether that be a web browser wallet or it's a desktop wallet. It says here they're often free to use, add-on services, so you can attach them to your desktop, to your browser bar and all that kind of stuff. Relatively easy because they're there at the device that you use, whether that be your mobile or a PC. But the risk with those is they're constantly linked to the internet, so you have to find other ways of securing them. Otherwise, you could be at risk of being hacked. So what do I look for? Ultimately, I want to try and keep it as safe as possible, but the vast majority of my portfolio is actually stored on hot wallets. But my hot wallets are then protected by my Trezor. So with the instance of MetaMask, you can link your ledger or your Trezor to it. And that basically means that you can keep on sending stuff without having to have your Trezor present. But if you ever want to take anything out of a wallet, you'd have to have your Trezor or your ledger present, so you can type in the necessary code to grant access for that removal. So that provides me with the convenience of it being attached to my PC, but the security of it effectively still being a cold wallet. What do I look for when we're talking about new tokens? I'm looking for ultimately ease, I'll be honest. If I can get it back to a MetaMask that's protected by my Trezor, that is the easiest and second safest way that I have. The safest would be all the way back to the Trezor. But I'm ultimately just looking for that step there. And if I can achieve that, then I feel relatively comfortable. Now, the MetaMask is pretty impressive because they're incorporating new networks, every week. And so it started off as Ethereum-based web wallet. But, we've got Polygon on there. We've got Avalanche. We've got Binance Smart Chain. We've got Phantom. We've got Moonbeam. Most of them, if not, well, we definitely don't have all, but we've got most of them. So you can now look at, well, what is my token? Is it an ERC20 token? If it's an ERC20 token, I don't have time to go through what that is. Then it will have a MetaMask address. And so you can send it to that. So if we just choose any token at random, let's just go to page 600 and we'll go to IDEX. Please work. Here we go. Yep. So you can see on Coinbase, it says contracts. It's Ethereum based. Yeah. And you can link it to your Trust wallet or your MetaMask wallet just by clicking on that. And what it'll do is it will do the network connection for you and add that token to your Ethereum side of the wallet. I was going to click on it, but I've realized that then you'd see all of my assets that are on there, which I'd just prefer you guys not to know, if I'm honest, and the value. So yeah, all you do is you just click on that there, or you can copy it and you can add it yourself. And so that we know. So if you is a new token you have, come to CoinMarketCap and see if there is contract for it. If I go back to let's do USDT. So USDT ERC, there we go. It's got Ethereum, but it's got this more tab. And look, because you can send it to all of these. So you can just click on any one of these as well, and it will add it to the necessary chain on your MetaMask. And so that's what you wanted to do. For me, that is the cleanest way. It's not the safest, but it's the cleanest way for me to get an asset, because I'm at my PC, but I still get security of Trezor. So yeah, I hope that one helps. And then Paul's put on last night's talk, which was last week, you talked about current price not following the 4-year cycle. Can you explain further? When do you think the Bitcoin top will be? Okay. 7 minutes. We're not going to make it. We're definitely not going to make it. Okay, so last week, basically what I was saying was, as good as this price action has been, I actually don't like it. I've loved looking at my portfolio. And what I will say is, regardless of today's pullback, let's just put that one to the side. I think the last 4 weeks have shown us the power of crypto, in the sense that a lot of you have either done what I've done and DCA'd in for the last 12 months, and the last 2 or 3 months have been particularly painful as alts bled out and the values just dropped. Or you've recently got in, but we've all experienced this pump, and that pump alone for me, when I factor in all of my staking, made a significant impact to my portfolio, which was red, then went green. I haven't looked at it today to see where it is, but I'd say it's probably still in the red just because of the Bitcoin value. But anyway, sorry, still in the green. But and this is just a micro pump. This is just a micro pump of what a real bull market can do. So if you can take anything away from the last 4 weeks, despite the fact that it looks like we're due a correction, how quickly things can change and turn around. The doom and gloom that was here 4 or 5 weeks ago has effectively just been eviscerated and evaporated. And people are optimistic. We know that for the fear and greed. And it's because it's felt good. People have been needing this for well over a year now. And we've started to see how that works. Now, going back to price action, why does this alarm me? Well, last week I made the comment that normally we are due a correction prior to the halving, and that correction, so we have a sort of a mini rally, and then we have the correction. That correction usually happens sort of like, a year beforehand. And what we're seeing at the moment is we're just seeing a continuous pump for the last year, or 10 months. And we haven't really seen that full-on correction. Now, if the correction is going to take 6 months, that's going to put us beyond the halving date. And suddenly, does that throw out the 4-year cycle? And if it does throw out the 4-year cycle, bearing in mind that I use the 4-year cycle, the 4-year cycle basically means that 18 months after the halving, I'm looking to get out because that's going to be the market top. Well, if we're late into that pullback and then that reset for the halving, then is that 18 months going to just push out to the right? Or was it just a fictitious number anyway? And actually, we might have a top in 12 months. And if we do, I could get caught out then, because in my head, I'm kind of using, a whole host of technical indicators, but I'm also using a time kind of indicator to just guide my nerves when it comes to times where I think it might be time to pull out. So let's have a look at it, because as I said, since the bottom in waves middle of November, but this is the monthly chart, November, to where we're at the moment, it's basically been a year. And from that bottom, we've not looked back. We've never retested that bottom. So at the moment, that is the bottom. And we've gone from 15,000 to 38,000. So a 2.5 times increase. Let's just put a price range on that as well. So there we go. Now we've seen rallies before. They may not have taken this long, but let's have a look at the rallies that we've had previously. So we've had from the bottom in December 18 to the top in June. It was, June. Must have been the very 1st of June. 19. We saw a 330% increase. So double, if not nearly triple, what we've seen at the moment. So you can imagine how face melting that must have felt over that 6-month period, for it to just rally as hard as it did there, where this has taken twice as long but only gone half as high. But you see, we had that then clear reset, real pullback, and then off we went into the halving. So these red dotted lines are the halvings. And again, just do the date range. So from the bottom to the top, there was 6 bars, and then do that again. And we had best part of a year, 11 months to get us round. Whereas we don't know that this is the top at the moment. That's the other thing. So we're speculating that this is the top. And that only gives us approximately 6 months. And I say approximately, I put it as the 1st of May. This date changes all the time. So what have we got? We've got the 18th of April. So I've got it as the 1st of May. It's actually 13 days prior to that. Okay. So we've got 5.5 months. So if this is to play out exactly as it is, and it never plays out exactly, we've got however long it takes to get up, but then twice as long for it to sort of almost recover back down. And that doesn't necessarily seem to be the case. As a matter of fact, if anything, at the moment, it looks like it's inverted in that we've got 12 months of pumping and we've only got 6 months left. Can we see some form of correction in those 6 months leading up to the halving? Maybe we can. So then we've got to look at the other years, and now we're like, okay, well, wait a second, maybe this one is a little bit similar. Now, there's a lot of similarities with this bull run and this bull run. And so actually, maybe then, this halving period is exactly what we're going through. Why do I say there's similarities? I've touched on this briefly before. I argue that this peak here in April was the market top. I know it only got to 64,000, and in November we got to 69. But a lot of macro indicators suggested that this was the market top in terms of volume, sentiment, whether you're a pure cycle top indicator type of person, whether you're the type of person that follows rainbow charts or whatever. Hitting this level here is where it looked like you should have turned around. What we typically have with it, and we've had here, was we have that pullback and then we have a punch back up, don't we? It never quite gets to it, dead cat bounce, and then we fall away. Well, I think what would have happened here is this was a dead cat bounce that just got a little too excited. And so for one day, and it was one day, price actually beat 64,000 and we went up. So everyone then refers to this as being the end of the cycle top. I just question whether or not that's the case. Why do I say that's relevant? Because then we look at this one. And we had this cycle top, which had two tops to it. I think actually it was this way. Basically 6 months apart. It was that way. And there's a lot of indicators that kind of said at the time that both of these were the cycle tops. Well, if we've had a double peak, now this looks hugely different because I'm on the logarithmic. But if we get in and zoom in closer, it is a bit closer. You know what? I'm just going to mess it up for later. I have to go back to here. 9 o'clock. I failed on my timeline. So let's have a look at how similar this may be to what happened here. So we had our bottom, which happened down here. And then bottom to thing 8 was 18 bars. Okay. But where did we have a rally? Well, we had a rally for 6 months. And this went from 150 all the way up to 320. So a fairly decent rally before it then corrected itself from 330 down to less than 200. So, you know, I know it looks tiny compared to the rest of it because, again, we're on the logarithmic. But back in the day, I can assure you a move from sub 150 up to 330 was an incredible move for Bitcoin. And it was a hell of a run, but it had that pullback. It took 6 months, and then we had a month, sorry, almost 12 months worth of the correction. So the timeline's working now with what we had experienced in 2018, 2019, and not what we're experiencing now. So the long point of what I was trying to make, Paul, sorry, was, going back, I can find it. I think my comment I made last week might have been a little ahead. I don't think there's any clear pattern in the previous. I mean, we didn't even do 2012, but there's not enough data. I need to get a chart that goes back to 2010, really. I don't think there's enough data. There's only been 2 full cycles prior to this. We're in the 3rd at the moment. So who actually really knows where it's going to go? And so actually, probably what I should do is recant what I said last week and go, as unnerving as it may be the fact that we're going up, you know, we've still got 6 months and we know the Bitcoin can move fast in which a correction could happen. I do feel that a correction is necessary for the halving. But whether or not it comes about, we'll have to wait and see. One final thought. I know I wanted to finish, but if you go into, let's drop onto the weekly. And we go here. So this was the run up to 14K, and then we had that pullback down to here. Okay, so it's about 6,000. And then we ranged for a bit and we started to move up. And you know what? This was a really strong, healthy move at the time. And what happened is the global market shut the bed because of COVID. And that happened. And I often wonder, it happened. So, you know, it doesn't matter. But I often wonder, had that have not happened, would we have seen a dip down there? Or would we have seen like a mild correction and actually this price would have tracked up faster or quicker, should I say, going up there? And so, yeah, that, you know, it's an outlier in the fact that it was such a black swan event. It's what drove us down to where it is. And I don't really think we had any other black swan events like that in the life of Bitcoin, which, you know, financially, which caused it. So this is where a lot of Bitcoin macro analysis falls down, in my opinion, because we've had so few cycles. We can't guarantee the 4-year cycle actually works. It's conveniently worked 3 times prior. Every time it's worked, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work every time. So just to go back, Paul, to what I sort of said, I'm probably going to just sort of rein that one back in, see how it goes. And maybe it was just a bit of, I feel like it's due a pullback rather than I'm worried that the cycle's going to collapse in on itself because it hasn't happened. Anyway, right. Let us move on. I think that was the last of the questions. Anything in here? Bijan's put, he probably on a, no, that's fine. Old RT member Craig likes Ellipal. Okay. Richard, didn't tell me I've got that. Gary Gensler, ready to take this steaming dump on us. Yeah, maybe. Maybe indeed. There's a lot of hope seem to be resting on that man's giving in to his stubbornness. But yeah. Okay. Let's just have a quick look at what Bitcoin's been doing. So this is what I did last week. This is on my chart, thoughts from November 7th. And I mean, let's just have a look. Because I tell you what, this wasn't me just plucking this figure out of here. This was liquidation charts based off high block. And look at it. I mean, we wicked right to the top of that. We took out all of those short liquidations there. I've not got high block up, but I imagine it's tens, if not hundreds of billions. And then it's reversed. And since then, it's not looked back. And now, what we were looking at last time was the strength it took. Oh, why can't I get the whole line in? There we go. Sorry. This line. So dating back, a year now. Incredible support for us. We finally lost it. And then it was just resistance we couldn't get through. And it burst through whilst we were on the call last week. Exciting news. What was it the call last week? Thursday, no, a couple of days before. So we were here. Talking about getting through. And then if it stayed above that, it's a very positive thing. Well, we came up, we tested this. And then since then, all we've done is just fall back away. And we've lost that support. And we're now, I mean, we're kind of resting on that. I'll zoom in now. But even that, it's not the best, is it really? It's not the best drawn on anything else. But we've come back down and we're retesting that. Now, we've only got the 50 EMA, I think this is. Maybe it's a 21. Let's have a look. It's a 50 EMA on here. But the fact that we've hit this liquidation points, we've reversed immediately from that, and we've fallen hard. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. That fall from 38, 8% down in a matter of days. It's a decent amount. Let's not kid ourselves, as I said. And I've always kind of said that this was the zone I was looking at for a number of reasons. We'll go into in a few charts. But I feel like this is the level that would seem like a logical place for price to retest. Still be healthy. Oops, twice now. And for it to then continue going through. And I feel like it's not really too much going to be stopping us now from at least this level. Because by the time we poke on another few days, we're going to get the 50 there. We know price is always drawn back to the 50. We've been away from it for best part of a month now. So I'm kind of expecting it to kind of meet back there. But then typically what happens is we lose it. And I can see a sharp spike back down, regain, and then recovering it and start to build from that. That's my positive outlook on where this goes. My absolute negative one, we'll have a look at some other EMAs and Fibonacci levels and everything else, but we lose that, and then it's this big pile of liquidity down at 27,000. And there's plenty of price action in all of these to suggest that that's why it's going there. Even the 32, I've zoomed in too far, kind of takes into plenty of price down from a long time ago. But yeah, that's sort of where I'm looking. So for anyone that's, not that I gave any signal or anything else, but anyone that saw that liquidation block as an ideal sell position and actually put in a trade there, well played to you, because that was a great move. The fact that we're back below this line is a tough line to break. We broke through it easy, but we came straight back down. So we may have trouble trying to get back up against that. Have I got two of the same? I don't know. Okay. So where are we looking today? That's on there. Don't need that. So again, we've come down. Where do we stop? Where do we find support? It was bang on the 10. So, again, it's history. The 5 and the 10 generally dictate which way we're going. Well, we've refound the 10 after, again, not touching the 10 since we last touched the 50, actually, on the 16th of October. We've refound it. Now, it's not a great level of support, and it's often breached. And I still think that 50 needs to be hit. And something we can take a look at some of these vector candles. And although I had two separate blocks at 33, 32, and then 31 to 30, it's just kind of blocked it all together. And that vector candle is screaming at least a 50% recovery, which at this stage takes it to about 31,500. Again, breaching the 50 EMA on the way to get there. I mean, there's a psychological level at 30, which is where the 200 and the 800 are creeping up towards. I can't see a sudden drop off to there unless the ETFs are banned or outlawed or whatever, some big news to drive it that way. But, you know, daily candles and daily movements, certainly in market maker theory, take weeks, if not months, to play out. So maybe we have seen that top similar to what we had in June of 19, and we're now going to have that slow bleed back down for a recovery, eating into the back end of this year, and then off we go. We've got a couple of weeks before we have a look at the monthly and where that's going to close in terms of those levels. But for me at the moment, I mean, obviously we're going to have to look at 35,000, but yeah, that level between 31,500 and or wherever this is going to be, let's just take it up to 33,000 by the time the days add on, is my initial view where I want to see. Now we do have a top, so potentially now we can actually put a fib on and have a look, see what this does. I've not done it before, so I end up just talking body to body. So what have we got? I mean, 618 is right down here, the worst case scenario. That's the golden ratio, if you will, the one that I prefer the most. But the 5 and the 3.8, you know, they're right in the sort of midpoint of that vector candle. And it's just how far it streams back down. I don't think doing wick to wick is going to make any difference of that, to be honest. No, just because they're a similar length either side. So that's just corroborating sort of with the areas that I'm kind of thinking of where it's gonna head towards. Let's have a look at some of the other ones. Now, I mean, Polkadot's a prime example of what we talked about last week. In the altcoins were just moving at such a rate of knots. A pullback was inevitable. And, you know, we've had probably a 60-degree angle climb for 3 solid weeks. And suddenly, you know, we've got too far away from these EMAs. And we talked about that being a great buy down here. I still stand by that one. But I think now the next level, if you're still looking to get into some dot, I still got a tiny bit left to get. I'm going to set some buys in around 4.5. Because I just feel that this is where it's going to come back down to. Now, got to be careful with this because, as we know, even when Bitcoin falls, most alts, not Casper, fall harder. So basing it on the same kind of analysis as what I'm doing on Bitcoin may catch me out as it goes further. So I'm not actually going to place any orders. I'm just going to monitor what Polkadot and a lot of other altcoins are doing relative to Bitcoin's price. And if Bitcoin's still got a way to go to the 50, but it's on the way down, and altcoin's already at their 50, then there's a good chance actually it may breach that. So that's where I'll just have to make some sort of nuanced decision. Looking at Casper though, so Casper's the one that's bucked the trend, but I mean the first thing we'll look at is the fib level that we put on here. And again, that fib level, that's why I like fibs, is it just worked out perfectly. You know, that pump this month has taken us exactly to it. Yeah, I know it's spiked through, but I just do body to body. We've come back down. And what's always catching the Casper is the 5 and the 10 EMA. And yesterday and today is exactly what it found balance on. It's the 5 EMA. And it's always done that. Now, you know, I still stand by, I think we need to get back down to the 50 and maybe even retesting this level here. So for those of you that are still looking to buy some more, potentially mid 5 cents, maybe down at 6 by the time everything moves around. So it could be a reasonable level to look at. For those of you that are working off Simon's fractal patterns, you've got a few days left for this 2-week period, and then I think, as you say, it's coming back down. I know some of you in the chat have kind of said 20 to 30 cents by the end of November. I'm saying that's a big move from here. So I'm not sure I'm agreeing on that one, but you know, it's doing what Casper does, which is the opposite of what everything else is doing. So whether you love the token, whether you hate the token, it's still moving strongly through there. I'm not like most of you guys. I don't have a huge allocation of it, but you know, it's there and it's doing its thing at the moment. Greg's just put, what are your general thinking with your holdings at the moment? Are you open to sidestepping anything? Are you strapped into the right? I'm not planning on sidestepping anything. I talked about this last week. Let me just get a clean chart open. I'll tell you what. I'll use this chart and then we'll talk about this. Not that. Sorry there. That back down. What have I done there? Disaster. I just want this chart. So let's just get rid of all of this for now. It should have just been quicker if I had a clean one. Let's use near as the example. And I used this example last week. As strong as that move up was, you know, the risk to reward ratio for sidestepping, you know, bearing in mind, you know, we sidestepped this bit and we got back in this bit. You know, we've not done much. It's not made a huge move for a pullback for a sidestep, you know. It's kind of, it feels like a big move, but it's actually done nothing. And sometimes the logarithmic chart can hide you from the fact, and it is good to go back to the linear chart. We've done nothing on a lot of altcoins that's worth sidestepping, because the risk to reward of it just continuing to go up, and you know, I sidestep at $1.50 and it goes, you know, doesn't come back down, or even if it does come back down, it goes down to 130. You know, what's the risk to reward for that in terms of me having already bought that position? So no, I'm not sidestepping yet. They're in I need this chart. They're in Discord. I know some of the channels got deleted, but you know, for me, for near, these are the profit levels. This is what I'm looking at. You know, and this is nothing compared to where I want it to get to before. And this is, take profit one is 20% at a 5x to just get my initial investment out. I think it's a 5x. Yeah, just about. And look, you know, that move here, it's just not enough. Yeah, okay. The near that I bought at $1 is looking great, but I bought near at $1.80 as well. So as a balance, it's in profit, but the move hasn't moved enough for me. And so that's the same, you know, whether we look at, I mean, Matic has done better. Link, I just don't want to talk about Link. It just makes me sad because I'm not in it at the moment. So I want Link to die because it's a token I really like. I'm not in it at the moment. Dot, similar, you know, what's the point in sidestepping Dot at the moment? We've got such a long way to go. So long answer to no, not really. Hey there, Brewster. How are we doing? Good morning, should I say. Right. So just going back to this chart here. So this is something that I talked about for 2 weeks in a row now, and it's just about that sentiment. And the only reason I mention it is because we've started now to see. So this is Bitcoin on the 1 week. We've got the price at the top. We've got the RSI. We've got the stochastic RSI. We're just talking about momentum, talking about where it's moving. And we were just saying for the last couple of weeks, we've had, you know, in this overbought and running out, overbought on the RSI and running out of momentum on the stochastic RSI. Well, we've seen, I mean, this red candle here hasn't closed, so this dip below the 70 doesn't count. We have to go on the green. This one here. So it still closed above 75. This week is bringing it back in. So potentially, unless Bitcoin regains its price for the week, we are now going to lose that. And typically when we breach over it, it does happen. But when we lose it again, we start to head back down. But we've also started to see that we've had the cross now. So how the stochastic is built, we've got a fast RSI and a slow RSI. One's the 8, one's the 26. Well, now the slow, the orange, is caught up and it's crossed over the blue. The blue's actually heading back down. Now, again, looking back, doesn't mean that we're going to run out of momentum, because there's one level that you want to look at. I'm not fussed because it hits the 80 sometimes and bounces back up. I want it to close below the 80. And then I kind of know that this is below 70, this is below 80, and they're all pointing down. And actually, we are overbought. We've run out of bullish momentum, and the chances are that we are going to see some form of correction within those. As I've stressed for the last 2 weeks, though, just heading down on both of those indicators does not necessarily mean that we're going to head down the price. They're not correlated to price. So yeah, we'll just wait and see. But we're just going to continue to watch them and see where they go. I said a couple of weeks ago, these will take weeks to play out. So we're just going to be patient with that. But things are looking, like I said last week, like we're running out of momentum. And it does feel like we're running out of momentum at the moment. But stranger things have definitely happened. Going back to here, so looking at CAS, as I said, we talked about that one. Is there any what the people want me to have a look at? Because I just feel like sometimes I regurgitate these, and I might just try and knock on the Ethereum whilst you're coming up with it. So Ethereum had a really good move up again. You know, bearing in mind it's at 1,500 last month. and we got to over 2,100. It was slower than Bitcoin to move, but we've lost that all important 2,000 level, and we've seen, you know, previous areas here where it's been rejected, and what it's done from there. Like a lot of other alts, it's a long way away from its 50, and I just feel that that is the direction it's going. I'm sorry if that sounds repetitive. That's what I look at, is that, and they just feel like they've been away for too long, and so that's the way we're going to head. Glimmer's done the same. Link, I mean, Link is just, it just makes me sad. Matic. So instead of going for all of these, look at total market caps, but look at total 3. I mean, total 3 on the daily, that's probably an 80%, 80-degree angle climb. Unsustainable. It just is, you know, that just shows you how strong the altcoins have done. And yes, that's been led by people probably taking some profit from Bitcoin moving on, but actually this has been going on for just as long a time, for 4 weeks. So there is something coming in. What I will say here is we have managed to close above that 200, I think that one is 800, and so we've not lost it. So maybe that's where the 800 and the 5 are meeting at the moment. Maybe there's a glimmer of hope there. We need that to continue the alt season, definitely, but certainly looking strong. Total are overall, again, really strong climb up here, but we're starting to lose a few, and I feel that either that vector candle or this 50 EMA needs to come back down. That's a decent correction. You know, we're talking about sub 1.2 trillion to get back down to there. So, yeah. Isn't Casper tough to predict, as so much cash has never seen exchanges? That's something I've talked about, Bijan, is that, you know, a lot of Casper was mined in the early days, and we're not even talking about ASIC miners here. We're talking about GPU-based miners. Someone sat at their home, amateur, just mining it, and mining a lot of it. And they probably mined it because they were big fans of it. They've seen the price go over. They just sat on their, you know, on their computer. It's never moved to an exchange. Now, that could be the same for a lot of Bitcoin. It can also be the same for a lot of other tokens like that. So, but you're right. I wonder what percentage of trading volume. In fact, you can actually find that out. So if we go to Casper, because it's updated now. You Casper fans. So at 34, 24-hour volume. So it's $51 million. And the volume per market cap is 2.7%. So 2.7% is what is traded at the moment. So I know that fluctuates day by day, but given what's already what's out there at the moment, you know, 90-odd% doesn't see an exchange on a daily basis. That might be, you know, an erroneous stat, because that's the same with every token. But you're right in saying that I wonder how much has never seen the light of even leaving whoever mined its computer. But it does artificially get put in the price. Now, that's great in the sense that, you know, that small percentage is what's driving that price up. But then at some stage, these people are going to want to take some profit. The good thing is they're retail, so they might just be greedy bastards that just hold on for it for as long as they possibly can. Diamond hands. I haven't seen that diamond hands much yet. We can't be in a bull market because we haven't seen diamond hands. Okay. Right, guys. I am 24 minutes over what I said I was going to be. So apologies there. Does anyone have anything else for me? I feel like I kind of rushed the last 20 minutes, so apologies there. Spent far too much time on Satoshi Nakamoto, obviously. Hopefully that's given you enough time to chat about something or write about something you want me to talk about. Just while you're doing that, so as I say, we've got that conference, the cuddle, whatever you like to call it, this Saturday. I'll be getting there Friday. So if anyone's around Friday, let us know as well. Should be a good day. I've just been told I'm up first talking, so I can get my boring chat out of the way and then listen to everything else. I'm sure there's tickets available if you haven't already. There is going to be a trading pub on Thursday. Don't know how long it's going to be, depending on how many slides I suppose Simon's done. But other than that, just thanks again, guys, for tuning in, and girls, if there are. And yeah, enjoy the rest of your evening. You got any questions or anything else, just drop them in Discord. I'll try and answer them. And I really look forward to seeing some of you on Saturday. Whether or not I remember your name come Sunday is another question. And if you've got a random name on Discord and you come up to me and go, "You out there, Harry?" and I look at you blankly, just tell me what your real name is, because I don't want to be saying Casper Fan 72 or whatever. It's going to be nothing to me. But I do look forward to seeing you all again. Have a great rest of your evening. See you all in Saturday. And for those that I don't, I'll see you next week. Thanks a lot now, and cheers.